Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is the Devils podcast. And joining me today are two of my favourite co-presenters. Joe Smith, how are we doing, Joe?
Very good, how are you?
I'm really good.
Good.
And Casey as well. It's been a while. When's the last time me and you were on a podcast together?
Couple of weeks.
See, it just drags. When you're not in my life, it just drags. That week felt like months. How's everything going?
That's like a JLS lyric, that, isn't it? Every day, I'm doing good, yeah. I mean, I'm not that good because United did draw yesterday, but if you take that out of it and look at the Premier League table, solace.
When you think about it, right? Solace.
Solace to be found.
In a word.
Do you look at it and go, okay, yeah, we're third, and we were, 14 points behind Leicester not that long ago, so it's okay? Or do you look at it as go, we've dropped points at home to West Ham and Southampton, we could have been home and dry, that's really annoying? Or is it a bit of both?
It's a bit of both. We could have been home and dry if we'd have won 7 games in a row, or whatever, we've already, I think we're 13 games unbeaten in the league as of yesterday.
Yes.
Like, what more can you ask for? We all understand, you look through this squad, that this isn't a team that can win 15 games in a row. I think we had an exceptional run. What was it? 19 games in all competitions broken by Chelsea. Obviously, if you pick in the games you lose, that wouldn't have been one because it's for a trophy. But this team isn't good enough to just go unbeaten forever. It's not good enough to never drop points. West Ham, the tricky shithouses. Same can be said for Southampton as well. I'm not happy with those results, and I think we could have won both games. But when you actually, like you said, you have to look at the bigger picture, because we were never going to end the season on 15 wins in a row and get third comfortably. We're not good enough to do that as things stand. And like you said, you've got to look at the fact we are third. If we win on Sunday, we finish third in the league, and I think that's the main takeaway from this week for me.
Casey, do you agree? Disagree? What do you reckon?
When you look at it, I feel like the worrying thing is that the fitness seems to be going. And I would have liked us to win against West Ham and Southampton because they were earlier on in the season, and I don't feel like we're going to do well against Leicester, mainly because of everyone looks absolutely knackered. And I feel, I don't know, we weren't going to go unbeaten, definitely. We might
go unbeaten.
Oh no, we'll go.
In the league.
Might go unbeaten in the league, but we weren't going to go unbeaten fully. And to lose one of the matches in this sort of run, yeah, the one against Chelsea was probably best, and we've probably been helped by the fact that everyone else in that top 3 just doesn't really want it. Like those vying for top 3 and 4.
Well, that's the thing with teams who are fighting for the top 4 are by their very nature inconsistent. Because if they were consistent, they'd be fighting for the title. So it's this thing of no one wants it, and I'm not trying to have a go at you at all, because it's not as
it's not a personal attack.
Dismissing everything he just said.
It's not as pronounced as it was last season, when literally everyone fighting for top 4 was just dropping points left, right, and centre. But other than Leicester, who have completely fallen apart in the last two or 3 months worth of games,
that'll continue.
Chelsea and United, I mean, if United have actually been really good, and Chelsea have just been as inconsistent as you would expect from a team that's fighting for 4th. Like,
yeah, it makes sense.
They're always inconsistent, those teams, because otherwise you'd be challenging for the title. So I'm not surprised that Chelsea have lost to Liverpool. That's not a surprise, is it? They win some games 3-0, they lose some games 3-0, because they're not that good yet. But yeah, I just think we've got the expectation that we were just going to win every single game from the start of lockdown to the end of the season is just completely unrealistic with the team we've got.
I don't necessarily. I get where you're coming from, and the thing with us, it's not the team, is it? It's the squad. That's the issue. You just mentioned then about tiredness. Some of the players look a little bit dead on the feet. You can see there's a lot of tired legs out there. We had the cup run as well that coincided with these must-win league games, obviously following a massive break for lockdown. I know we're gonna get onto that a little bit more anyway about sort of the squad and trusting your players. But one player who started practically every game since lockdown has been Paul Pogba. Now I do get fed up sometimes talking about Paul Pogba, especially when he wasn't playing. It used to do me head in out.
Well, yeah, then it didn't warrant the conversation.
But
did it?
No, it'd be nonsensical not to talk about Paul Pogba after the West Ham game, because
he put an audition to take over De Gea's spot.
Yeah. Well, he put. I mean, we know what happened. It was an handball, obvious handball. He put his hands up in front of the face of a free kick. Pretty much everyone admits he should have just took one for the team, took it in the face. But it's not just this game. There's been a couple of incidents in there that you mentioned earlier about where you're like a little bit like, is it catching up with him a bit? Is he not quite the races? What is it?
Well, this isn't an attack on Paul Pogba, but I think a conversation ought to be had about like you said, I think most of the conversations that took place when he was injured were redundant because of the fact that he'd been nothing other than our best player for the 2 years preceding.
The thing with that was like,
and then he could be
it got
injured and now get
nonsensical,
slagged off.
because it was like, you know, he's at his brother's wedding or whatever. He's at a wedding, or he's watching something, or he's
and
and I just don't care.
he's fit enough to walk, but he's not fit enough to play for Man United. Like one of these things requires you to be able to move a bit. The other one requires you to be one of the best athletes in the world. Like, I can dance at my sister's wedding. Don't mean I can play for Man United. Like, that whole thing was just so ridiculous.
Yeah, it was
like, there aren't levels to fitness and injuries.
Yeah.
But I want to go through some of the goals that United have conceded in the games where we've either dropped points or lost to Chelsea, and look at a mixture of... Go on.
Just not to depress us anymore.
Well, it's not meant to depress. It's just meant to let's allow a look at different things that have led to...
There's no point in ignoring it. I get where you're coming from.
Obviously, the games that we've won, primarily, we've been the better team in. I think maybe people having to go at us for the Villa match where we sort of squeaked it a little bit, but you know, it was 2-0 in the end, so we can't have been that bad. But the games where we've dropped points, so and this isn't just an attack on Paul Pogba, by the way. This is anyone that made mistakes leading to those goals. So the first game was against Spurs. Now, the mistake was made, bad pass or bad header.
Yeah.
Then Maguire dragged out of position and done by Bergwijn. Lindelof not covering across properly, and then of course David De Gea not stopping the ball from going in the back of the net. So there was 3 or 4 errors in there, culminating in probably the worst mistake was by a mixture of Maguire and De Gea, I would say, for that one. Then the Southampton game, the first goal, Paul Pogba dispossessed by Danny Ings.
Yeah.
Then chipped to the back post, and they scored their goal. The second one, 3 of our players were beaten in the air from a corner in the 90th minute.
Yeah.
Again, unacceptable. We got Matic there, we had Martial there, we had Rashford there. Then against Chelsea, poor pass from Brandon, and then Matic allowing... poor from Brandon and Matic allowing the cross to be put in. Yeah. Lindelof got bodied by Giroud, and then the ball got put in, obviously. The second goal, Brandon was a bad pass inside, wasn't closed down by Maguire and Lindelof, and then an awful mistake from De Gea.
Yeah.
And then yesterday we saw the Paul Pogba handball. So 2 mistakes from De Gea, 2 mistakes from Paul Pogba, a mistake from Lindelof, a mistake from Maguire.
You need the Lindelof mistake against the one against Bournemouth as well.
But we won that game 5-2, so I'm not... Whilst the mistakes are still there, I'm not as concerned about it.
But I feel like the mistake was...
I'm not saying that Lindelof's been great. I'm just saying who's made mistakes in games we've dropped points.
Bournemouth as well was Maguire getting megged and near post De Gea. But I get where you're coming from. You're talking about what's cost us.
What's cost us,
So, because if you want to go into games where we've conceded goals that haven't cost us, we'll be here all.
Yeah, of course. We can go into loads. So we've seen 2 from Paul Pogba, we've seen 2 from David De Gea, we've seen 1 from Matic and Lindelof, and we've seen another one from Maguire as well.
Yeah.
So Paul, De Gea's obviously had a lot of criticism, and rightly so. It's been 18 months potentially now of bad mistakes from him.
I agree.
Paul Pogba, where do we think this... one of those was a lapse in concentration against Southampton. Ball got dispossessed and taken over by Danny Ings and just wasn't quick enough. He thought he could rely on his strength, but Danny Ings just went round him instead of getting in a tussle with him. And the second one was a handball, which to me is a lazy... People say, it's instinct. It's instinct if you haven't been playing football every day of your life since you were 8 years old.
Yeah.
When you can't use your hands at all. It shouldn't be instinct for someone who's been doing that. That instinct should have been trained out of you. You should let it hit your face. Move out. If you really have to be so scared that it's going to hit your face, move out the way of it. You can't put your hands in front of your face.
There was a lot of things he could have done other than put his hands up. Like I thought when everyone first saw it, they're like, he's put his hands up to his face because he's been hit in the face. That's what everyone thought. It was like
he tried to con everyone, didn't he? As well, he acted like he had
it again, and you're like, his instant reaction was just to go, "No, don't hit me, please," like sort of thing. I mean, it was a venomous.
Do you know what the problem is with this goal? Is it fits into a narrative as well of people. One of the reasons people who don't like Pogba will have a go at him. It's a mistake anyway, and he shouldn't have done it. And I quite like Paul Pogba, but I think it's unacceptable. But when you see criticisms of Paul Pogba, you hear criticisms that a lot of it's unfounded, I think. But things like attitude, things like desire, things like heart, things like that, and it fits into that. Yeah,
and people will say,
he cares that narrative,
more about himself.
And he's like, he's not taking one for the team. He should have just took it in the face. And you've got to put all that to one side and just look at it on its own merits and say, just take a fucking football in your face. Yeah. God's sake. Or like you say, listen, I've seen Darren Fletcher move out of the way of a free kick against Liverpool. I've seen Giggs do the same and it cost us a goal. Moving out of the way of a free kick isn't good and isn't acceptable, but we've still got a chance that David Hay could have shaved it, or it would have gone over.
Yeah.
But to put your hands up is just criminal, especially in this day and age of VAR, because maybe they got away with it if there was no VAR. But there's VAR. You've got no chance. I mean, I thought he was off his head just pretending he got hit in the face because he must have known. Yeah. And you've seen the images of Michail Antonio mimicking what he's done as Paul Pogba watches him in the background. It's not great.
The fact he didn't go on and absolutely rinse West Ham for that really annoyed me. I saw that afterwards. I was like, if that was me, I would have just gone.
It's a shame as well because it was that early on in the game that you think, it's first half, towards the end of the first half, but you think there's still enough time for us to come back. But we just, we didn't turn up. But again, and because of that, if we'd have won, that would not be on your little list now.
Well, that's the thing I want to talk about. One of the reasons I wanted to bring this up isn't just to say Paul Pogba is shit, because no one's saying that.
No.
But I wanted to talk about the mistake against Southampton where he got dispossessed. This mistake here. Why do we think that's happening? Now, I think it could be, my personal opinion is mental, physical, but primarily mental tiredness. I think putting your hands up like that is what you would maybe do in training, or what you would do if you're playing with your mates where I don't need to take this ball. It's like his brain slipped a moment of thinking, oh, fuck. If he got the situation he was in, he was fatigued or his head wasn't in it. That's not a physical of course, it is a physical reaction. But that is his body overriding what his brain should be saying is, you can't do that. Because I've had the ball hit me in the face. When you play football, you have to override that instinct. And he will have done, dozens of times, I'm sure, in his career. He doesn't just put his hand there when the ball's going past it like you would if someone was throwing you a bottle of Coke. You don't do it because you can't do that in football. And the same with the one against Ings. We saw with Fred a lot in his first season at United, where he was playing in that number 6 role, and he would turn blindly into corner and get the ball taken off him. I think one was against Watford where we conceded a goal from it, and
Wolves as well.
That's the one I'm thinking of, the Wolves one. And he would just lazy passes and taking too long on the ball. And to me, that's what Paul Pogba was doing. The one against Southampton, where you're not checking your corners, you don't know what's around you. I think that's just a tiredness thing personally. And maybe he's not used to playing number 6.
See, it reminded me a lot because that one was the one that led to goals, but it's happened a couple of times in the matches I've watched where he's just been messing about. Like, it reminds me of the Paul Pogba that we saw under Mourinho and sort of thing, where it's just like, I feel like he forgets sometimes that people can tackle him, because he just starts to get the ball in his feet and he gets people around. He's like, I can play it about, I can get it around him, I can push you off it, and then finger it. And he just forgets that sometimes someone will just kick it off him.
Because we saw it earlier in the season against Crystal Palace, didn't we? And I used to think that sometimes Paul Pogba held onto the ball a bit longer because there was no one making a run, no one moving around like they should have been. He was looking for options that weren't there. But I think going back to this isn't really that, because it's literally like he's got it and almost immediately he's had it taken off him. And I think, he does need to be a little bit more aware. And I just wonder whether there's not sort of a case to be made that he shouldn't be that deep anyway. Maybe all he needs to look at is either switch him and Bruno around, or just have Matic that deep and just let Pogba move a bit further up. I don't know, maybe that is a tactical change that would help.
That's why I think it's tiredness, because it's that awareness and that do you know when you're knackered and you go into, someone's passing you the ball, and instead of taking that step to the ball, you wait for it to come to you. And it's that kind of like not taking that extra half a step and then not being able to push off just as quickly as you'd like, because you just 10% sat on it. And then also when you're playing at number 10, which is where he's played for United, it's number 10 or number 8 for most of his career. He's not played in this deep role as much. You can give the ball away 3 times out of 10 because of a lazy turn or because you tried something too much. When you're playing a number 6 role, if you give the ball away 3 times out of 10, one of those 3 times out of 10, it's a goal for the other team. So, you've got to temper your expectations and your what you try to do with the ball when you are in a deeper role, and when you get it wrong, the other team scores. And maybe he's not doing that.
Because like when you say, because the way that United play, as soon as if he lost the ball as a 10, you've got the two players behind him, you've got the 2 centre-backs. And then you may have the right.
And also the assumption is he's receiving the ball further up the pitch, so there's also another 50 yards of pitch for them to have to attack.
But then in number 6 he loses it, and the left back and right back have already pushed up.
Yeah.
There's now 2 defenders, and those 2 defenders are Maguire and Lindelof.
Who regardless, even if it was, Maldini and whoever, Bobby Moore, you would still not want 3 attackers on 2 defenders.
No offense to them. Their mobility is not their strong trait.
Fine,
so if they've got 3 on attack, they're not going to be able to cover a lot of ground and get passed around. It's kind of like you're giving away an easy chance, easily, like in that scenario where it's like.
What did you make of the fact that we've heard from Maguire, we've heard from Sorry, I've just got an Adam McCullough was crawling across the
Nearly
camera.
tripping over
He
a
did well
camera.
there, though. He didn't come on camera. I'm impressed. What did you make of the fact that he apologised and Maguire's come out and said he's apologised and Ollie's come out and apologised? Do you think it's one of them, like, he acknowledges he's done wrong, he knows he's made a mistake, and it's like, right, we go into Leicester and show us the Paul Pogba that we expect?
I think, he has to do that.
Yeah.
It's not one of those where it's like, there's no defence for it.
No.
And, anyone who says it's an instinct, that shouldn't be the instinct of a
I think
professional
there's a
footballer.
problem here, and this is what I hate about sometimes when it comes to football and social media and sort of bedding down in your argument, that some people almost get to the point where they refuse to see any mistakes or acknowledge any faults with the players they love.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and
people
it's like,
refuse to give praise to
I've
any
seen
certain
I've seen it
people.
like with Rashford. Rashford had a bad game the other night, and Steve's looking at me over there from off camera. Unless Steve Housen, of course, he's absolutely fair with everyone, especially Ashley Young. But like I seen it last night with Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford had a world against Palace, and people will be quiet about Marcus Rashford's performance against Palace. But when he has a bad game, they'll be on him and slagging him off. And I was a bit disappointed Ever sort of threw him under the bus a bit, saying, "Oh, well, I've not seen any criticism of Rashford." Because I saw a lot of criticism of Rashford, so I don't know where he was getting that from. Yeah, he's done it again, Maka. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with that, but I think sometimes it's like, you know, for one of the better, I am Pogba FC, so I'm not going to criticise him. You just have to acknowledge a mistake.
Yeah, they hate someone, so they can never give them credit for when they do something well, and they love someone, so they can never, be critical when they do something wrong. I think Paul Pogba is Manchester United's best footballer, and I've said that
I get that
since he joined. I think he's been United's best player, but he's been sloppy in possession in a position you can't be sloppy in possession.
See, I feel like the game, if he plays the game against Leicester, that is, I feel like, the be-all and end-all of what the opinion of United fans will be on. Because the fact is, if we win that game against Leicester, we get everything that Paul Pogba has apparently complained about for the last 2 years at United given to us on a plate. If we win, we get top. We're third.
We're third.
We're third. We're in the Champions League. There's no knockouts, no playoffs. We are in the Champions League, which is apparently what he's been. I want to win trophies. I want to be in the Champions League, sort of thing. If he doesn't play well and he doesn't look like he's putting effort in, everyone's going to be like, well, you're obviously talking a load of rubbish then.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's going to get absolutely slaughtered.
I will never ever buy into this idea that Paul Pogba doesn't want to play well, doesn't try, or doesn't give everything he can. I think sometimes he has these lapses. He doesn't perform to the levels he can do. I think that's obvious. There's nothing revelatory about that.
Yeah.
I just don't like some people. They go a bit one further and they go, well, he doesn't want to be here, so he's not trying. And I've never really bought into that narrative at all. One thing I will say though is, and you mentioned it earlier, Joe, is about tiredness, fatigue. Pogba's played a lot of football. Bruno's played a lot of football. Now, before the lockdown, Scott McTominay come back from injury. You know, he scored that goal in the derby. Everyone was raving about him. Fred, we had a discussion before lockdown. I think it was me and you and Steve as well about our player of the season. He was in that conversation. Yeah, these guys it's like Ollie's forgot about him almost.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem. I know they've had games since the break, but it doesn't seem like you can trust them fully. And it's a little bit baffling to me because I get you need a strong team in these games, but you can see outside everywhere everyone is. And you've got these players who, Fred was undroppable a few months ago. What's going on?
I think it is as simple as, to get Bruno and Pogba in the same team, you need someone who is very defensively astute. And that, again, Matic was very poor yesterday, I thought. But I think he is the most defensive of the midfielders we have. Yeah. And I don't think any one of McTominay or Fred can play alongside Pogba in a six and hold it down as well as Matic does.
Because Fred, like, even though he has played well, you still look at his stats and he gives the ball away a lot.
He didn't cover himself in glory in the Chelsea game. Was
I didn't think he was bad in it against Chelsea.
But I feel like
compared to some players.
Yeah, I just don't. I think he suffers as well. I mean, I don't think he covered himself in glory. I get what he's not bad, but it wasn't a game where you go, right, well, that's it now. Fred's in the team now. He wasn't. That's what I'm getting at. It was like we're crap, and he's been one of our okay players in a crap team. But it needs a bit more than that for you to go, right, okay, Fred's in now. Yeah, Matic is out, Fred's in. There was none of that.
See, the thing is since lockdown, we've kind of gone into championship mode in that sense of, like, you're playing a game on the Saturday, and then you're playing again midweek, and then you're playing again on the Saturday again. And always they say that you need two squads in that scenario. So, like, maybe one or two players you don't drop, but everyone else needs rotation. Everyone.
Do you feel? And I don't want to get all conspiracy theories. It's a question.
Do it.
But do you feel at any point that Ollie's sending a message to this board?
I think he is without necessarily meaning. No, I'm not saying he doesn't mean to or he doesn't know what he's doing, but I don't think he's purposefully playing a team that is overly played or played too many minutes to look weakened to
Right.
therefore
This isn't
show that we
Jose
need
playing
players.
McTominay in defence.
No, I think this
Or
is
Herrera in defence when
think-
we're getting battered because he wants to show off the fact that he didn't get a centre back.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think this is all he's saying. Listen,
He's not like
I
randomly just
need,
been like,
I need some players.
he's not been like,
No.
randomly Timothy Fosu-Mensah is in the team because I need players. Like,
I just think it's
again,
he's
it's-
playing what is the best team available, and it's still not quite enough. I think that's what, and we see that.
I mean, if anything, it shows that we need strengthening.
Yeah.
And we need strengthening, but we need more than just Jadon Sancho. We're all guilty of it, being caught up in this whole Jadon Sancho to United thing, and there's slight rumours that it may be like Sancho and that's it. I don't know if that is the case, but we definitely need another midfielder, 100%. And this is shown that because if anything happens to Bruno or Pogba week, and even with them, they can't play every game, and we're over reliant on him. Nemanja Matic as well. We need at least one more midfielder.
Yeah, and I feel like we need. The people keep saying the defensive midfielder. I feel like we need another creative midfielder because once you saw in the games where we took Fernandes and Pogba off, we lost every single outlet of passing. We lost every single outlet of creativity. And I feel like you need someone in that team that is definitely like, if you were to bring him on, he might not be as good as Fernandes and he might not be as good as Pogba, but at least you'll know, oh wow, he can pass the ball and we can still at least have some
And he
outlets.
might score you a goal as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with Pereira doesn't score goals. Lingard doesn't do much of anything at the moment either.
Honestly, if
we
someone-
don't have anyone, other than Pogba and Bruno, who can play as a number 10. Who gets not with any output.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating because on paper, right, Jesse Lingard should have something to offer you. He's 27 years old. He went to the World Cup not long ago and played every important game in that World Cup. There was a time where his numbers held up against the likes of, they weren't as good as, but they weren't that far off Eden Hazard for one season. It was like, wow, he's getting goals and assists left, right, and centre, and he was a big game player, turned up in the big games, and yet he's just gone completely off the boil at an age and a time when you wouldn't expect him to, and there's no sort of physical reason why you would go, oh, well, he's going to be knackered now. Why though? It's just weird, and it's like he's now become to the point where, as you mentioned, you can't rely on him. If Jesse starts against Leicester on Sunday, everyone will be going, oh, he's lost the fucking plot.
Yeah.
You know
What is he doing?
he's coming off at 60 minutes.
Yeah,
somewhere
why
else.
has he done that? Like, it's that bad. And this was a guy who was not just an England international, he was a starter for England.
Yeah.
And now, I don't mean that's the be-all and end-all, but it shows the levels he was at. And now, I mean, you're at a point where Jesse struggles to make our bench. If everyone's fit, he might even...
He regularly isn't on the bench.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a fitness thing. It's
No.
tactical. It's like, do you know what? I don't need you. I will not use you. So there's no point in me putting you on the bench.
And something I want to talk about as well, just a little bit, is for me the difference between tiredness and fatigue. Because let's not forget, these players have had 3 months off, which is something in terms of a rest, something they will never have and have never had in their career.
Okay.
But when you play 4 matches in 9 days, it doesn't matter how rested you are. I don't think these players are necessarily fatigued, as in like they've given too much for too long.
Yeah.
I think they've just given a lot in a short amount of time. I think they're just tired.
Yeah.
And people always say, oh, he's fatigued, he's fatigued. I think they've just played a shitloads of matches in a very few days, so their bodies haven't got time to recover between. I don't think there's a deep sort of mental and physical. I think they're just a bit knackered.
It's interesting as well you mentioned that, because if you look at some of our key players, apart from maybe Bruno, you look at Pogba, you look at Marcus, you look at Martial, they've had long periods off injured as well. Like Marcus was off for like 2 months before the break, and then 3 months, and he had a serious back injury. Martial missed a big chunk at the beginning of the season. Pogba missed practically all the season. So your body can't go from missing that or from recovering from that to just all of a sudden playing a game every other day and being okay about it. Do you know what I mean? You're going to feel that.
It's like match fitness. It's like if we still had Wayne Rooney, and even in like 26, 27, if he'd missed all that football and then come back in, you'd be like, after one day,
Rooney could be the worst player coming back from a long layoff. I love Rooney, but come on. There was times when he looked like he just climbed off the plane in Ibiza when he was going into a game. You were like, wow. But then he'd get fit very quickly once he started throwing himself in.
I was saying, going back to like your point though about people on the bench, and it pains me to say this.
Go on, say it anyway.
Andreas Pereira, I feel like when you see like people being sold and stuff, Andreas Pereira just seems to avoid it. And it's not been mentioned why, but I feel like he has something to offer in terms of
on a football pitch.
On a football pitch, surprisingly enough, not as like being tied to a post and being balls kicked out for target practice. But I feel like he has the passing ability that you need for the number 6, and I feel like he could easily be the rotational option. Just someone needs to go to him and be like, look, if you go on the football field, do not take 4 to 5 shots a game from outside the box. pass it because he obviously has the passing ability, and we've seen him in the past when he has the passing ability. He just doesn't have the decision making, and I feel like if Ollie could go to him,
that's hand in hand. The passing and the decision making. That is a massive part of it, isn't it?
I mean, if you cut the shots out of his game, if you like, don't take this many shots.
Yeah, but if you're a great cook, but you keep buying pillows instead of steak, you're not making a good meal no matter what, are you?
Right, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Yes, he's a good passer, but he picks the wrong things. It's like I said, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
You can't get it completely wrong except the execution when you've made the wrong pat, you've turned the wrong way, you've been dispossessed here, you've taken that shot there.
I think with Pereira now, we've got to raise the bar a little bit, and I think he's just getting left behind. And I think we've had so many questions, so many times where we said this season. He's very good in pre-season, Andres Pereira. He always sort of, I won't say flatters to deceive because that sounds harsh, but he always performs in pre-season to the point where you think, oh, there's a player here. And then you go into the sort of August and he's shown signs, and then by December you're tearing your hair out if you've got any. His performances.
Tearing your beard off.
Yeah, tearing your beard off, literally. And, we've seen it this season, Bournemouth away, he was dreadful, and I think Jesse comes on for him. And it's like an improvement, and Jesse's not having the best game, but he's just gone. And then you think, well, we need more than that. You need something from him. I don't think he's got it to offer. So with Pereira, if he was 19 or even 20, fair enough, but he's not, and he's been in and around the first team for a little while now. Andres Pereira's played 30 odd games this season. He's had so many chances.
And most of those, and a lot of those were like pretty much in a row to the start of the season. Like he was
more posing the question.
I do like him as a person. I think he gets a lot of grief, which I feel is a bit harsh. And I feel sorry for him sometimes because I think he's being played constantly when he's not at the level he needs to be. It's not his fault. He's not, if he could be better, he would be, but he can't. But I think you've now at a time when you're looking at, you've got Bruno, you've got Pogba, you've got all these, you've got Matic throwing putting Pereira in, it just stands out. It's like, it was different when we didn't have these players, but now we have, come on.
To turn away from Pereira slightly and go back to what you were talking about before, just in a slightly different angle. McTominay and Fred, are they kind of sort of trapped in between players in terms of they aren't number 10s that can create loads of chances, and they don't have the defensive discipline that Matic has? Are they kind of almost parts of a puzzle we don't have?
I think those two work best together.
Yeah.
We've seen that. We've seen that against very good teams. Did they both play in France? Play in Paris? I don't know actually. I know Pereira played, and I'm not sure if they all played, but I don't. They might. I can't remember. But anyway, they played against City, and they both played very well, and against a very strong City midfield. But I feel like to play them, you're playing both as like a holding midfield partnership, which means you'd have to sacrifice Pogba or Bruno, which ain't gonna happen. So you need one person, as you pointed out earlier. Matic has that discipline that he can do that role.
Yeah, as well. Playing as number 6 for 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like with Fred and McTominay, Ollie probably thinks I need to play them both together, and I can't do that with the midfield options I've got going forward because I'm gonna have to drop one of my.
I feel like McTominay is probably more in a problematic situation than Fred, because I feel like Fred could come on for Pogba. Like when you see he's like what Fred offers is he can get up the ball, he can pick up the ball. He doesn't have the passing ability, but he can carry a ball and he can get the energy about the pitch. So if you like Fred next to Matic, I think maybe works. But then McTominay, I don't think has the passing ability or like on the ball sort of scenario. Like, and you said playing together, but then it's like, do you drop Matic? Well, no, then because he can't play Pogba or Fernandes. But it's like
it feels like with this midfield now we're in a very similar situation as we were when Ollie first took over, when we had Herrera, Matic, and Pogba as the three. We played the first sort of 7 or 8 games until I think it might have been more than that until Pogba was suspended or whatever. But it worked, and I feel like this three now works. And if you swap, say Matic for Fred, it doesn't. Matic for Pogba, or Matic for McTominay, which seems the obvious swap to make. It's not quite there, so I don't know. I just feel like it seems that Ollie doesn't trust him, does it? Because we all mentioned fatigue and things like that, and he's not willing. I mean, all right, he's done it once, I think, but he's not willing to swap Pogba for Fred. He's not willing to swap Matic for McTominay, and Bruno. Not just is undroppable, he rarely takes him off as a sub.
There's not. I don't think there's anyone you can say that's in that team that's anything like Bruno, because he's like he has the creative going forward, but he'll come back and he'll tackle, but he doesn't lose the ball as much, and he just. Offers so much.
The sort of energy and work rate of Fred, but he can actually make chances as well. Like
you don't need to rely on anyone else around him. Like he makes everything, and then, his own chances and stuff.
Yeah, and the movement ahead of him has been much improved, and people making runs with the expectation that they'll be found now, which I think is such a massive thing, which is why confidence, people always talk about, oh, you need this player, that player. Confidence is such a massive thing because confidence isn't just I think we'll win. It's, we'll make that run. Yeah. And it is, I will pull that ball across because I'm confident there will be someone there.
I've really wanted to see Lingard playing with Fernandes, mainly because the one thing that I've always seen Lingard do is he always makes dummy runs. He always runs just randomly, and he tries to drag people with him, but he always gets to the point during matches where I see him, and like everyone just kind of just forgets about him because it's like no one's.
But we saw that against Wolves, didn't he? And like Fernandes was having a go at him, like for not making those runs. I get where you're coming from.
I saw him like all the start of the season, he was making these runs, and I was like, well, by the end of the match, I was like, well, there's no point in making the run because no one's making the pass to him. So the defenders are just like, yeah, let him go. Like it's not. They're just going to try and like force it through the middle. So I was like, well, if you have Fernandes on the pitch, who just decides to ping it anywhere, and a couple of times at the start of the match, he just starts throwing it at Lingard, then it adds more capability and actually like a sense of gravitas to what Lingard can do on a pitch. Like even if he doesn't, gravitas is the word. That's not the word I was looking for, but we'll go with it.
A sense of gravitas to the proceedings.
It's a sense of like, I don't know. Basically, it means that Lingard actually offers something even if he's not scoring.
A purpose.
A purpose.
There you go. Before we...
Speaking of purposes, go on, what were we going to say?
I was just going to say, right, this is a sort of a topic I wanted to touch upon. Like, you may have noticed that crowds aren't allowed in the games. It affects everyone differently, and I think it's affected us more negatively than other teams because I look at these points we've dropped, the games you've spoken about, West Ham and Southampton at home, especially last night against West Ham. You feel the crowd. I mean, you saw it in a derby the last time we had a crowd at Old Trafford. I know it's a derby game. It's like different than playing West Ham. I get it. But the crowd were up for it. I think the crowd this season have been a lot better than they have been in previous seasons. I think you look at the Stretford in particular, and just the crowd in general, Old Trafford's been up for it. And I think these are the types of games where, you mentioned it, you get equalise against West Ham, the crowd are behind you.
Yeah. And that push to get the second goal.
And I know no one's got crowds. So you go, well, everyone's on the same crowds, and everyone can argue that. But you know, starts United away following's mint. Secondly, Old Trafford's been up for it. So I just feel like we're being a little bit. It's cost us.
And also the positions we found ourselves in, other than Bournemouth, we sort of have struggled when we've conceded, and we've conceded first too many times. And even the Southampton game, holding on at the last minute, you've got to have an extra sense or an extra inch in your jump. That kind of when the crowd's all behind you, everyone's excited, everyone's cheering you on going into the last seconds of a game. And obviously it doesn't win you a header in the box because the crowd are cheering loudly, but it gives you that extra bit of energy. When we sat back against Southampton, where we're just inviting pressure on, it might give a bit extra. Like you said, those home games like that, and the West Ham one especially, like I said, you score a goal to get back into a game, and that surge from the crowd and that extra energy, those next 10 minutes are unbearable for teams a lot of times, like West Ham, but we couldn't quite capitalise on that. Right, come on now then. You don't get that without the crowd.
Don't think the games we've won, had we been at an away ground with full of away fans, or not away fans, full of their fans and our away fans, it would have been. I don't think, if you look at it and go, oh, well, if Villa had the crowd behind them, they would have won that game or drawn that game. We walked it in the end.
I can't remember. I think the commentators said about West Ham. I think it was against Palace. I think they went 2 up, and then in the second half, Palace scored against them. But West Ham were able to just counteract it completely, like straight away. Like they did exactly what they did against us, where they conceded, and whereas usually they'd be like, "Oh, those teams now on the back foot," they just instantly just went, well, just set back and just went to what they were doing.
Because there's not the pressure, there's not the excitement, and you feel it, when you're in the ground, obviously. And I'm sure as players talk about it all the time. It's not some fictional thing, is it? There's a reason why teams win more games at home than they do away.
Yeah.
And it's not because we know the exact dimensions of the pitch or the grass is 6 inches longer. It's a mixture of a lot of things, but one of those things is the crowd. And, it does make people play better.
Because our record this season, I think we've won 10 out of 19 league games at home, which is, I think, it's our 3rd worst in Premier League. It's up there, joint or whatever, with some of our worst ever seasons. So I don't know. I feel like it's hurt us a little bit. I know you go with all teams, but I think it's hurt us more than it would other teams, and it's a shame. And it's a shame that we could go into next season by the look of it having those lack of fans as well.
Just quickly before we do go, this is the last podcast before the final game of the season. What are your thoughts for the Leicester game? What are your worries? What are your thoughts for the Chelsea game? last game of the
It's
season.
the last
going into
Devils
it.
podcast for the game before the final game of the season.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
Housen scowling at me there off camera.
Because he wants to get something from in front of one of the cameras.
It's gonna be.
Is it?
Is it really your Twix?
His Twix.
Is that why you're distracted? What? Right, okay. We're wrapping up now anyway. Go on. Go on.
To the games at the weekend. What are your thoughts on these?
I
How were they?
Let's
How
talk about
confident
United's
are you?
history starting in 1908. Go on.
Yeah.
No. Let's skip forward to 1991. Jake, go.
How
No,
confident are you about this weekend?
Rotten. That's assault. That was on camera, so I'll be suing
we have
through my
video
legal
footage
team.
of this attack.
Yeah,
No,
that was a good shot. That,
I feel
actually.
like Chelsea are going to struggle against Wolves because I feel like Wolves have been well regimented.
Regimented.
Well regimented.
Luis Roger. Right, go on.
He's sabotaging this podcast. And it's an awful
Traore is
habit.
going to be an absolute pain for Rudiger,
Alonso.
Zuma, Alonso, all just the back line. And Jimenez is going to be a pain in the air.
Mm.
So I feel like we have a bit of a leeway in that sense, but I feel like we still need to win. And I feel like that hopefully
We need to go for a win, not for a draw.
Players
That's a
will give it
disaster
all
waiting
up.
to happen.
Oh, yeah,
Because
no,
they don't need a draw. That's the thing. Unless Chelsea are 4-0 down at half time and the Leicester players see it and they're like, a draw will do us here. If we go for a draw, we will lose.
Yeah, it's
because
not like,
Leicester ain't going for a draw.
it's not like we're going to go for a draw, then Mark Albrighton out of nowhere, I'll just ping one top corner.
Yeah,
Well,
it don't
okay,
matter.
then
Or
that's
the
a
winner
good
header, or
start.
Soyuncu, or Johnny Evans.
Johnny Evans is a red.
Whichever one is the most annoying and predictable.
If you didn't hear Adam McCullough shouted, best centre back what? In the Premier League.
Johnny Evans.
Johnny Evans still misses Johnny Evans.
What are you thinking? How confident are you this weekend?
I don't know. I'm not very confident. I'm sceptical, but I just think if we go for it, I think we'll be all right. I think we can get a draw if we go for a win. If we play for a draw, I can see Jamie Vardy in the 93rd minute getting a winner. Do you know what I mean? And
That'd
it's
be
like,
so
oh,
good,
what?
wouldn't
And it'll be one of those things, you know, they do the table as it stands.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, half six,
All we
United
have-
were in the Champions League, and by quarter to seven they weren't.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
All we have to do is match Chelsea's result and we'll get top four. That's
Come
it.
on. Just all I can say
Match
is just
their
get
result.
behind the boys, get behind Jimenez, get behind Traore, get behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Give a hand those
Come
other
on.
Wolves players.
Come
you don't
on,
know the name
Wolves.
of.
Yeah.
Do it for Manchester.
Willy Bolly.
Yes.
Come on,
exactly.
mate.
Casey, thanks for joining us as always.
Right.
What's your Twitter handle? Where can people find you?
At Casey
Tell 'em.
_Evans _
There
as
you
you
go. We'll
always
put it on
call
the
it
screen,
complicated.
probably.
Yeah, we go.
Joe, what have you got
wasn't
planned?
mine.
It's not going on the
What
screen.
madness have you got planned for us?
I've
on
got Late Night Live tomorrow night. Make sure you check that one out. It's going to be a good one, actually. Last one before the end of the season, before the end of the Premier League season. So got some stuff to look forward to. That should be very
Joe's
good.
just going to be
We
passed
all-
out.
we
in
all
the
need a
corner.
laugh
It's my
in our-
birthday tomorrow as well.
Oh, it's his birthday. He's doing it in his
So,
birthday suit as
might
well. As
be
an
a
extra
birthday
special
bonanza.
treat for you.
Ooh.
That's been
Scrap cake,
Casey.
aren't you?
That's been Joe. Off camera's been House and throwing things at me. Shouting things about Johnny Evans been Adam McCullough. I've been Jay. This has been Devil's Podcast. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit